What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 2 of Class and Jules. We really appreciate all of you who checked out episode 1. Appreciate all the kind words and support. Fired up to be here. This is Deemer Class, and I'm here with my man, Jules Henenberg. Jules, welcome back. Excited to keep talking some lacrosse.
Oh yeah, I'm pumped to be on again. I know it's been a fun couple of days being able to kind of watch the games from home, me and you. Obviously, we want to be out there playing, but it's so fun being able to watch as fans now. I know last year, I just remember kind of being on the field after the games, enjoying them, just kind of being a fan. So it's cool to be at home, be able to kind of have a little bit more of an analysis on the games and just be able to enjoy them. I know the Archers, the Water Dog game last night, the second half was electric, and I know a lot of good stuff happened, and obviously the Woods Chrome game. And I know we'll get started talking about that a little bit, and I'll kind of pass it on to you.
Awesome. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, watching these games on NBC and NBC Sports is really special. 20 games in 20 days, and it's been awesome to see the activity on lacrosse Twitter. I think Jerry Raganese actually made a great point where he said, just with more eyes on the sport, you have more people commenting on the good, commenting on the bad, forming opinions. And I think it's just cool to see more people form opinions on things. Like, I think it's interesting. It's always interesting to see someone tweet and say, here's my opinion on this, and this is why. And, people are entitled to their opinions. So I think it's just cool to see more and more chatter. You look at some of the big time sports, every time some of the biggest stars in the NFL or NBA make a little move, everyone's coming at them or everyone's saying things. And I think, you kind of, when you're an athlete, you want to get to that stage where you're on, that platform where you do have to, watch what you do, watch what you say and different stuff. So I think that's the special part about sports. And then you have that ability to use that for good as well.
Yeah, it's interesting with lacrosse. I don't know if our sports, not that we're not ready for it, but it just seems like people are surprised a little bit, with the coverage when we all knew coming into the PLA Championship Series, like this is going to be the biggest most eyes on the sport ever. And, with that comes the territory of people having their opinions, like you're saying, and, it getting blown up in the media. We've seen stuff, go on Sports Center and just a lot of different people kind of commenting on things. At the end of the day, people are talking about lacrosse, and it's great lacrosse that we're watching. So it's been pretty cool so far, and I think it's gonna, keep growing the sport.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, as players, like, you just learn more and more, like as you get more eyes and people are watching TV, it's like, it's important how you carry yourself, or, it's just how you choose to carry yourself. And that's just kind of is what it is. And, I think, we both learned that in college as you kind of play more and more on TV, right? Games on the Big Ten Network, games on ESPNU, like different things like that. And you want that. And then, with that comes responsibility. So, and then kind of letting that segue in, to someone who's hitting the stage, big early on. It's been awesome to see Grant Ament play for the Archers. 2 big wins, for the Archers. Our guy Matt McMahon representing, which has been awesome. But Jules, let's talk a little bit about Grant, his impact on the Archers, and his playmaking ability.
Definitely. So I've got to know Grant a little bit. I played him in the Big Ten for a couple of years. He was 1 year behind me. I know he had a foot injury that kind of set him back a little bit. So I knew what he was bringing to the table as a player. Obviously, that transition a little bit into the pro game is always going to be there. But I think he was, he's mature. I think he's got the right attitude. He's got, Tom, guy like Rob, kind of in his corner, leading him a little bit. So I think it's no surprise that he was able to come into that team and really kind of find his feet early. And it's definitely been something, where it's been allowing Tom to kind of balance the field more in that offense, because I know last year there was a lot of stress on Tom coming out of the box. He always has those speed runs, kind of last midfielder on, kind of creating the offense. But now, when you have the ball kind of behind the cage a little bit more with the men, it's just creating more of that field balance. And it's hard, to beat a team when you got 2 guys playing at a high level the way they are right now, and being able to get guys involved. It's just a lot of moving parts, and it's been exciting to see. And I think Grant plays the game the right way, right? He makes the decisions for his team and not for himself. He scores the ball when he comes around the cage when he's open. He feeds the ball, when other guys are cutting, as we saw that pass to Tom last night. And I think if he can continue to stay level-headed and make the right reads and continue to grow, I mean, the sky's the limit for him, and the sky's the limit for that offense.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with how Grant's carried himself. I've gotten to talk to him a little bit And I've just enjoyed watching him play from Penn State and now to the Archers. Paul Kark always talks about all his different feeding angles. I think that's really special. Something that we talk about on the shooting side, being able to shoot from different release points. I think it's really special how him, and then obviously a guy like Tom has that ability with both hands. Combine that with Grant's quickness. And you saw that on display. He had a great split dodge at X, turn the corner righty, showing off some great footwork. I think having that dual threat, to score and feed with the ball on a stick, then you combine that with, Marcus Holman, Will Manny, right? Two of the best off-ball players. Then you have guys so concerned with those guys off ball that maybe some slides to X are slower. And then if they're having to slide, that means guys at the top are now having to help and be two slides and help on Will and Marcus. Then when you swing that ball up top, now Tom is attacking, right? More approaches, right? He's getting more short stick matchups, right? You saw it, his first goal against Atlas, right? Short stick redodge up top, right? He had a couple other opportunities like that. And, one coming out of the box. And I think when he gets those kind of opportunities and gets going, now that's so different from him having to be the one with 30 seconds on the clock to start the offense, right? Dodge, redodge, find a skip pass. Like it's easier to cover as a unit for a defense. And now combine that now with Grant being able to take off some of that pressure and make plays. I think it really opens things up for their whole offense.
Totally. And I know we'll talk a little bit about Chrome's offense, but just in general, I think that the offenses that are doing the best in this league, I know last year and this year it's really proving it so far, are the ones that have the tandem, that dominant midfielder who can, pull, suck the defense up, make plays, shoot with range. And then you have an X attacker who's dynamic, can get to the rack, can feed the ball. And then they're able to work off guys in the flow of their offense as well. Guys like Ryan Ambler, Ian McKay, Christian Mazzone, you see him, kind of coming on and people wonder, why for me, like I've been playing with Christian for a long time and you wonder why he gets some of the easy goals he does. If you have so much attention on two guys like Ament and Tom, it just lets those other guys kind of be free flowing, play their role. And if they do it at a high level, they're going to continue to cash in. I would say moving forward, defensively, it's definitely going to be something where defenses are going to have to start pressing out on Ament a little bit, putting some more pressure on him in general. And then I think just challenging him to beat them one-on-one. Like do not let him, continue to get these kind of, out of the ordinary plays, the one where BJ Grill, where he was running and, kind of caught it and moved forward. Oh no, that was the Alice. But another play like the one with Kyle Hartzell, where he caught it and Hartzell was kind of out of position last second. Like you don't want to have those situations happening at all. You want to really force him, let him go one-on-one from behind the cage, make him beat you. And make sure he's not getting those chances with the short sticks and in the flow of the offense in 4v3 opportunities. So it's going to be interesting moving forward to see how they kind of defenses start to adjust to that. But so far they're doing a great job.
Yeah, and going off of that, I want to plug talking with Matt Dunn and Matt McMahon. Two guys I really love hearing their defensive opinions. They talk about guys being able to dodge from X and stuff. And maybe you can even elaborate on what makes it harder for you to dodge. But I would imagine one way is you're pressing out, making those guys catch it deeper and catching it moving away from the back of the goal than being able to catch and attack right into their dodge. Two, kind of like angling an approach to where maybe you're forcing a guy one way and you're not just giving them this total two-way opportunity. And then three, really approaching with that stick out. So where you're making that split move a little farther away or really having to worry about swimming or going under, and you're just more worried about that hand exchange. TJ Kemp made a nice tweet where he's talking about these guys where Paul Kark was like, these three attackmen, what do they have in common, right? Sowers, Ament, and there was one more. And he was like, they get so close to the defenders when they make their move that they can kind of wait till that last second to throw on that juke step, right? And that jab step. And I think, one of the ways that you deter that is by really getting that stick out in the chest, using that 6-foot pole. That's something I always appreciate hearing the defensive perspective about.
Yeah, so I know I was talking a little bit about BJ and Rob. That was a play I was alluding to where BJ kind of was pressing out on Rob a couple of games ago and was really stopping him from getting the ball in the flow of the offense and then being able to dictate what he wants. I think as an attackman, that's the most annoying thing, because with this clock, if you don't get that ball that first time when it's coming around and the defensive presses out on you, you might, and they do that 2 or 3 times, you might not get the ball a whole quarter, and now you're not in a flow. You don't have confidence. Conversely, just adding to that, if you get the ball and I have a defenseman who's not putting their stick out in front of me and is letting me get a run at them, like that's an automatic win for me. Like the situation where Grant had it with Hartzell behind the cage, Hartzell was coming to catch up to him, and like that's bread and butter for Grant or any guy that has those quick feet and knows how to sell a step one direction. Where it's really hard is when you start looking at defensemen. The best defensemen I play, and I know that it's going to be a hard day at the office for me, are the ones that when I do get the ball, their sticks out in front of me and they're drop stepping and keeping that distance from me and not letting me dictate the flow of the offense. Anything else besides that, I'm excited to go against the defenseman. Those are the kind of stuff that makes you think a little bit. You got to adjust. Maybe it's not in your wheelhouse to be as physical, whatever the case may be. And I think if I'm playing the Archers or any attackman like that, that's exactly what I'm doing to their ex-attackman to really disrupt him.
Yeah, Jules, I think that's great insight. And hopefully, some of our younger listeners that are tuning in are kind of taking notes on that, whether you're an offensive player or defensive player. And obviously, we appreciate any coaches who are tuned in, sharing that with your players, because I think that's stuff that, can help you get an edge. And kind of speaking to that, like shifting gears, but staying with the Archers, I do want to give a shout out to Ryan Ambler. Ryan's someone who I really enjoy playing or watching play, was my year at Princeton. Have kind of, played against and known him through the ranks. And Ryan does such a good job without the ball on his stick. And, it's so important, to just, find your different roles, and I talk about this all the time. And, I know we both do, where, when the ball leaves your stick, what is your job on offense? What do you do without the ball? How do you make your team better? How do you set your teammates up? Or, maybe less is more. Maybe it's just holding space, But Ryan did such a nice job a few times, setting some razor picks, behind the cage, working, like, look how he drives his defender in and then explodes away to create space, putting the pick defender in a tougher spot to be able to help or hedge. And it's really cool to see someone like Ryan create those opportunities for Grant, to come around or get his hands free. And I think, again, when you have players like that are willing to make, these subtle plays, where I know Joe Keegan sees that, he's shouting that out in the 10-man ride, right? And we're talking about that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that, if young players can keep picking up on, right, and studying the game, using, all this great footage, from the PLL and, seeing sports on NBC, like, those are the guys that are going to help you win games and win championships.
Yeah, and that's just it right there. It's plain and simple. You don't have those guys like Ryan Ambler, Christian Mazzone, those guys that are doing those things. You can have all the horses you want, all the alpha midfielders, ex-attackmen. It doesn't matter. They need you, guys like Ryan Ambler. I know you take pride in that. I take pride in that. They're going to need those guys to, to really make the offense go.
If you're a coach, last thing before we move on to the Chrome here, if you're a coach and you got someone like Mazzone, two-way guy, gets the ball on, the offensive side of the field, he's got to match up. Where's he best dodging from? What is something that we can keep looking for in his arsenal?
With Mazzone, I've seen it for a long time. Obviously playing with him at Rutgers. I think for him, something he does really well is he's quick off the first step, but he's also does a good job, similar to a guy like Jordan Wolf, of using his size to kind of just move around his defenseman top side. And I know he does that in the low alleys really well. He got an easy one last game, and he's got a couple opportunities doing that. And I think he can continue to be a presence behind the cage doing that. And then I also think that, he really does a great job off ball in general, and kind of just finding space, cutting, and just doing his job when he doesn't have the ball on his stick. And that's why, I think he works so well in that offense, because he doesn't need the ball a lot to be productive. But then when he does have it, like a guy like Ryan Ambler as well, who was a number 1, number 2 guy at Princeton and in college, they know how to take their guy to the rack, especially a short stick matchup.
So maybe with what you're saying, I'm thinking get Christian in a little nations look, let him slip to the cage, kick it to Ament at X, and then dish it right inside the Mazzone.
That's all day. That's bread and butter.
I like that a lot. So maybe Coach Bates, if you're listening, check it out. All right, well, let's move on here. One team that's been awesome to watch. A lot of former teammates of mine. Guys like John Galloway, Jordan McIntosh, Will Hawes. Chrome has been doing an awesome job, 2-0. And it's been awesome to see guys like Jordan Wolf and Ned Crotty, really be, dynamic and explosive. Two of the best players and over the last decade in, college and pro lacrosse. It's been, cool to see guys, on the last World Games for Team USA. And, I think Ned's been on 3 consecutive world teams since 2010. So, Jules, let's talk a little bit about those guys. I know you mentioned the 1-2 punch earlier, but what are you seeing out of Chrome?
Yeah, so I'll start with Ned. I mean, he's a guy that I definitely looked up to when I was younger playing and watching him at Duke. He's seamlessly been around the game for so long, but has always been a high level player and just seems to kind of just fall through the cracks a little bit, I think. But he, the other night he goes 2-2. It's not talked about enough. It's just kind of quiet 2-2, but he just does his job. He's athletic. He's fast. He can feed. He can score at such a high level, and he's doing that from the top, the midfield. He's got the range and the shooting, but then he can also invert and do it from behind too. So I think, look at like I said, the best offenses in this league have a guy like Ned running out of the top of the box, a guy like Tom, and then they also have a dynamic ex-attackman like Wolf, who I know, this year, obviously, he came out hot, right? He came out ready to play. And I know those guys, obviously, a little bit of a coaching change, a little bit of chip on their shoulders. I think you're seeing that with their style and that 1-2 punch, a dynamic ex-attackman and a dynamic midfielder, and guys like McIntosh, guys like Gutty, who are always finding the slots in the offense. It's easy money for Gutty now. He gets those two bombs when Jordan Wolf and Ned Crotty are drawing so much attention, and then he can also go one-on-one. So it's just hard offense to beat when those guys are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, they play really well together. Obviously, have had chemistry for years. Even thinking of like Ned, Jordan, we were just talking about Ament and Schreiber. Like, think about like the burst and the speed out of those guys. Like it's almost like interesting. Like Ned, has these long freaking legs where he's just running like a gazelle. The one he had a nice goal turning the corner upfield yesterday. Does a great job, right, of extending his hands. His hockey background. He's got really good hands, lefty and righty. Speaking of like guys looking up to, I was the same, with Ned in terms of like always loving the way that he threw passes and skips and dodging from X, and being such a hybrid player. Coach Caputo always talks about how Ned has every skill set, and skill that you would want to be able to do. Time and room shooting. Guy can play 2-man game. He can dodge from X. He can play one-on-one. He can play in motion. He can throw skips, both hands, to all spots in the field. Honestly, like that's something that where I remember, last year people were talking about, Schreiber throwing these skip passes through the field. I mean, that's Crotty too. You know what I mean? Like, don't forget about his ability to fricking slice and dice the defense, with his vision and his feeding ability. So it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, I think, we talked a little bit about, the forgotten players sometimes, and we know it. Everyone that plays in the field knows who the threats are. So it's interesting to see sometimes, who the fans or who the media or whoever, is watching the games, why a guy like Crotty isn't, talked about as much. But, in my opinion, he's one of the best midfielders at what he does, and he can play attack. Like, he could easily play attack. He played attack at Duke. But like you said, talking about all those skill sets, it allows him to just be a guy now that can float up top, let Jordan do what he does from behind, and then continue to extend the defense and also invert, like you're saying, that up the hash shot. So it's definitely something to watch as time goes on with them. I think, their offense, the way that they're playing right now, the chip on their shoulders, if they can continue to play at that high level, the Archers can continue that 1-2 punch. Those teams are going to be the ones that, I think are going to really make it down the line. And it'll be interesting to see how those offenses continue to develop.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, like, I think Connor Farrell's done an awesome job. I think he's over 70% at the X. John Galloway, 60% in the cage. John's someone who I've always had tremendous respect for, in battles with, over the years playing against. He's someone I think is, again, like, a lot of great veteran leadership on that team. It'll be exciting how, those guys continue to develop and just see as all these teams come together and keep growing chemistry throughout the tournament.
Yeah, and last point to that, it's interesting, how people kind of, talk a little bit about lacrosse in a way that's like, oh, like, how this guy did last year or how that guy did in college, whatever. Lacrosse sometimes I feel like it's it's a short season. Like sometimes the product that you get in 10 games is not really, it's not their body of work or not what they can really do. And I think, you look at the Chrome team last year and everyone was kind of wondering like 1-goal games, this or that. It's like that team before and those guys, before were crushing, pro lacrosse. And it's like, just because they had a little, maybe not the best year in those 10 games last year, or whatever the case was, to think that they weren't going to come out this year and Galloway wasn't going to be, dialed in, or Wolf wasn't going to be on a tour, a vengeance tour, like, or trying. It's just, it's interesting how people kind of, create those perceptions.
Yeah, 100%. I think it just goes back to too, like, I think the consistency piece is like really the telltale. Like that's, to me, is like any athlete's goal is like, you want to be consistently a high level player. And when you look at a lot of the guys on that roster, they're consistent. They've been doing what they do for a long time, and you like talk about some of these goals that, Jordan's scoring and physical, coming up the hash, beating guys. Like, it's like, that's what Jordan does. Like, even like, again, I just remember back to my sophomore year, 2014, guy led us the entire season and just put up game after game after game and like was the best attackman in the country. And like, I'm going to say that because it was facts. And it's just, it's been cool to see like, Jordan just over the years, like even in the pro game, like consistently be, consistently have top defensemen be, how do you cover this guy?
Mm.
And it's just like, that's just so impressive to see. It's like, it's like you think about someone like, I don't even want to say like a James Harden or like a Westbrook, but like just guys like that, when you think about some other sports who just game in, game out, just dominate and put up their numbers,
Do your job and just keep it moving. And with that being said, we'll transition a little bit to the Woods. Obviously, we're off to an 0-2 start, which I think, at the end of the day, the game last night was a 1-goal game. This league, every team's good, and I think any given day, you could lose. You could win any given day, you could lose any given day. It's a matter of consistency, and it's a matter of who's hot that night and who really shows up. And for us tonight, we have another game. I think on the offensive side, I think we got to get into more of a consistent game flow and more of an identity of what we're trying to accomplish. I think other teams have been able to come to that a little bit quicker. And, there's a bunch of different factors, but I definitely think something we just got to improve on is that ball movement. I know we talked a little bit about that, me and you, is just kind of getting the ball from the midfield to the attack to the backside and kind of flowing through and then getting shots on the cage and then getting shots to X and letting our X attackman pick up the ball and re-attack upfield. And I think that'll kind of, start to create a little bit more of a consistent rhythm as the game goes on and letting guys get into the flow of the offense. Because I know that's something we've talked about before as well, is like when guys don't get in the flow and then all of a sudden it's the end of the second quarter and you haven't really done much. And then third quarter comes around and you're kind of pressed a little bit and then you're down by 2 or 3. You don't hit that 2-bomb, fourth quarter comes in and all of a sudden now you're starting to get in that flow in the fourth quarter. And it might be a little bit too late when the other team's been in their flow for 3 quarters now. So I think we definitely kind of got to get that a little earlier. I know Miles and Perk are starting to develop that a little bit more of that chemistry. And I think we got to start to find our roles just a little bit more on the offense. And I think we'll be able to, adjust to that and continue to push along tonight. So I'm excited to see them to develop on the offensive side with that.
Yeah, we've got Woods Chaos tonight, rescheduled game. I think similar, for my boys on Chaos. I think the ball movement piece in general is just something that, takes time. It takes, working, through a couple games, couple practices. And I think it's going to be a great matchup. I think, to that point, I kind of spoke to it in Joe Keegan's 10-man ride, but the concept of, flipping fields, right? Attacking on one side, dodge, pass, you attack on the backside, you start attacking shorter approaches, you're attacking from shorter distances, right? Like you think about that first dodge in an offense, these middies are catching it close to the midline, right? And guys are pressing out and they're having to run down. Then you get guys that are pressing out at X. Then you have to turn it around, throw it back up top. Like you got to initiate and be a threat. draw that, adjacent or draw a crease side and kick it and then swing it again. And then you attack the backside. And like same thing if you're running pairs, like work a pair on one side, keep the ball hot, flip it to the other side. And I think when both offenses keep developing that, guys are going to have an easier job. Defenders sometimes get lazy, approaching out on the backside. And like to your point, so underrated, but getting guys comfortable and settled in and having more guys touch the ball so more guys can feel in the zone, more guys feel confident with the ball in their stick. It gets harder if, maybe you lose a couple of faceoffs, the team dominates one quarter. How do you get back in that flow? That's always the challenge. Any offensive player can think about those times where, hey, haven't seen the ball. All right, next one, do I go? Do I just take that shot? Maybe I'm a little more patient, or maybe I'm a little more gripping the stick too tight because we haven't seen the ball in 10 minutes. So those are all really important dynamics that, offensive players can all attest to at times. And that's, kind of one of the balances of trying to be that consistent player.
Yeah, I think it's something that as lacrosse continues to grow, especially kind of just watching the PLL, that, some fans maybe don't take into account as much is like how quickly these games really go by. And there could be a whole quarter, like you get one run and you got one dodge against a short stick. And you're just like, I got one run the first quarter, maybe one the second quarter. It's halftime. You don't even got a sweat going yet because it's just how the flow of the offense. Maybe it was more transition. Maybe you guys weren't getting the ball as much, and the quarters they tick. So I think for the rest of the season as it goes on, it'll be interesting, like I said, to see how it develops. But definitely in this league, how good the teams are, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to turn things around and get this one tonight. No offense first to Chaos, but it'd be huge for us. And then we could get the next one. All of a sudden we're 2-2. You might look up and the other teams that are 2-0 might be 2-2 because maybe they get, another team gets hot. Maybe they kind of get comfortable. They get tired. Maybe they used all their gas to begin the season, whatever the case is. So it's definitely an interesting format with how teams are kind of positioned to play some games early on. They got a five-day break. I know the Whipsnakes had their break right away. So, I mean, this tournament, the records are not going to be reflective of how things really shake out in the end.
Yeah, for sure. You guys can get your turnaround, after tonight. We'll put that on pause. Excited for my boys, but it'll be a fun game regardless to watch. Nice rematch from last year's semifinal. It's going to be exciting, and teams are looking forward to competing. So I'm looking forward to watching. And Jules, anything else before we wrap up the show?
No, I think I'm definitely pumped for Thursday. I know we're going to get on there and really get into one on the Zoom call and enjoy some company with some people and raising money for a good cause. I know I'm working with the Owls, and who are you guys working with again?
Winners Lacrosse is the sponsor club of the Chaos. So Jules and I are going to be going live on Thursday during the Atlas game. Excited for you guys to tune in and hang out with us. Kindly asking for some donations to help support two awesome organizations. We'll have more information about that on our social media, where you can kind of check in, get the Zoom link, hang out with us, ask us questions while we're watching some, awesome lacrosse. So really excited, really appreciate everyone tuning in for episode 2. Comment any thoughts, things you want to see, things you want us to touch on. Really appreciate all your support. Jules, been a blast as always, and looking forward to our next episode.
Yes, sir. I will see you on Thursday.
Awesome. I'll see you soon.
Talk to you. Bye-bye.